Welcome, everybody, to an impromptu live with Mr. Mac Haddo from the American Kratom Association. We know that there are a lot of questionings that are happening right now since the DEA announcement of the 708 scheduling. So, Mac, first of all, can you give us an update? Do you have any updates on North Carolina?
I do. They got through their negotiations with the hemp bill, and they concluded that kratom was not included in their current deliberation. They've adjourned now for their recess for a while. They'll come back and finalize everything, but I think that the combination of very effective advocacy outreach combined with what happened at the federal level convinced them that this wasn't the right time in this confusing environment to add kratom into that hemp nonsense. So I think that we're making real progress there. Equally true, by the way, in Michigan, which was a great victory for us because Speaker Hall was making this his highest priority in the budget negotiations, and they got to late night last night, and he didn't win. The Senate stood firm against him, and I'm sure he'll be back next year. But now with this federal action, it weakens both Speaker Hall and I think anyone in any of the states because of how clearly that Secretary Kennedy and the FDA came out and distinguished natural kratom leaf from 7-OH chemically manipulated opioids. So I think that it's going to take some very effective communications with these states and localities, but we'll eventually overcome this issue that we've been fighting with over the last 3 years to get this 7-OH stuff under control.
As far as North Carolina, it looked like they completely changed the language in the bill.
Yeah, they're going for regulation now, which will be okay, but it's got to be the right regulation. We don't want this to be, kind of out of control. So there's still work to do there, but I think we're in really excellent shape right now.
Okay. Nick wants to know what's the plan for California now?
So I've got to tell you that I try to stay on a slow burn, but I'm furious about California for a couple of reasons. One is that the chair of the Senate Health Committee, who stopped us from proceeding with regulations, did so largely because of her belief that given the lack of federal action, and she bought into the Department of Public Health narrative about kratom and the FTA and kratom webpage. So now I think our pathway is to completely reset our strategy. And my opinion, and there are others that are involved in this, so I'm not the only one that can speak to it, but I think our strategy's got to change and not be whipsawed by what the Department of Public Health is doing and these legislators that think that the Department of Public Health gets to direct them. We need to find a champion that's going to jump in there and say, no, the legislature sets the rules. You do not. Now, the other thing that I am very hopeful and frankly optimistic about is that the FDA will keep its commitment that once the scheduling recommendation, which now is in place, was completed, they will change that FDA and kratom webpage. Now, it's very difficult to predict how they will change it and whether they'll do it correctly. But the fact that they're going to change it and have committed to do so tells me that they're listening. And so I think that we have a real opportunity to fix that. And that will completely take off the table some of these things that we're seeing in California, where the reliance upon the FDA and kratom webpage is the sole basis for their action. That's true in New Mexico. It's true in Ohio with the Board of Pharmacy. It's true in Minnesota. Was partially true in Michigan, although mostly driven by Speaker Hall and his compatriot Patty Wheeler, that he was working with. And that was more a political issue than it was good public policy. But he got wrapped up in it, and it's Hollywood glamour come blowing into town, and I think that's something we can work on now. We've got time, and we're not going to let this thing just sit as it is. But I think that the bottom line in California is resetting our strategy, and I'm going to be very active in working with the other groups that are involved in this to advocate for that, because we've let this thing sit, and now we're letting the bureaucracy tell us what the public policy ought to be rather than the other way around.
Because we see it all the time too in the locality hearings. They're referring to the FDA Kratom webpage, and it, that whole New York Times article about Mark Wayne Mullen they're saying that he had the FDA and Kratom webpage changed. Is that true?
No. I think there was a very minor change that was made to the FDA and Kratom webpage, which was not what we needed. And I don't know everything that happens at the FDA, but I am very confident that Mark Wayne Mullen had nothing to do with that change, because if he had, it would have been a dramatic change.
Mhm.
I think the very interesting thing about the New York Times article is that the writer and the reporter whom I've spoken with a lot is so locked and loaded on the narrative of being anti-Trump,
Mhm.
and she found this story, and I think hyper focused on some things that happened. No question, you look at it and say, oh, well, what was the real story here? J.W. Ross made some contributions. The Mid 45, group made some contributions, and Ryan Naidell was involved. And that's an interesting story. And the fact that they talked to Secretary Kennedy and they talked to people at the White House. This happens every day in Washington, D.C., and everybody's doing it. And I told this reporter, which obviously wasn't interested, was that the 70H people were doing exactly the same thing, and that one of the leading 70H manufacturers was openly bragging at the Champ Show that he had given a contribution of $500,000 to have the chance to sit at a table in a fundraiser with President Trump. This is just normal course of business. And they just wanted to stay focused on the narrative, which was anti-Trump. And they're using this storyline to get there. It's a nothing burger in Washington, D.C. People look at it and say, well, that's just the way business operates, right? The only thing, and this has been my experience, this is just not my opinion, it's my experience. The only thing that putting money on the table to get access gives you an opportunity to speak. It doesn't mean you're going to win the day. You've got to have something behind it, and that's where the 70H people failed, because they didn't have the science, and it's where the kratom industry had the science behind them and prevailed. And just because both sides were engaged in combat, lobbing their weapons, in this case political contributions, through the air, hey, that's just the way political gamesmanship in Washington, D.C. works. And there's nothing that's a scandal about it. And there's nothing that, despite the attempt to make it a sensationalized story, that really made any difference. But it will have an impact in some of these localities where they'll use it, just like they used the Tampa Bay Times story.
Mm-hmm.
It's an awful piece of yellow journalism, and we discredit it time and time again. But it's just what happens. And so we're going to have to do some ground warfare in talking about the New York Times article in some of these localities.
When it gets political like that, it automatically turns me off. It's like I was reading through the article and I'm just like shaking my head. I didn't even want to finish it. I had to make myself finish it. Do I remember everything it says? No. Regulate California Now says, let us know what we could do for California.
Yeah, I will. And I think that once we have a discussion about next steps, and we've already got this planned for Monday, we'll hold a webinar and we'll get everybody up to speed, because this is now absurd that the legislature is going to be out of session, and we're going to have the Department of Public Health running the show. And even when we get to the point where the website is changed, there's no guarantee that the Department of Public Health is going to change. They'll just find another excuse, and so we may end up in court with them. But the good news is we have them on record saying that the basis for the current ban on kratom products in the state of California is because of the direction, guidance, and conclusions found in the FDA and Kratom webpage. So whatever shift they make, it's going to be on shaky legal ground. So we'll see how that plays out. But we just got to step up the game here, and particularly in this period where the legislature is not going to be in session, to get something done there.
Okay, and then you guys, it's just me today because Jen is taking care of her mom after hip surgery. So bear with me while I deal with the comments. Smith Lavelle, any update in Ohio? We heard a case headed for Supreme Court.
So a couple of things happening in Ohio. I just testified in a hearing where a local Kratom bar vendor was cited by the Department of Health, and so we had an administrative law judge hearing, and it was interesting to just hear the questions that the prosecutor was asking. Now, I only was able to participate in what my testimony was. I don't know what other kinds of witnesses said. I wasn't allowed to do that. But the questions they asked me were really, sort of uninformed. It was like there was a presumption that they were right and that nobody could possibly be wrong. And that's always true for trials, by the way. But there's an edge to it. And at one point, the prosecutor asked me, what was the basis of my concern? Generally, I'm paraphrasing, about the current rule if kratom does have risks that are associated with its use. And I'd made the point that everything has a risk. I mean, it's not like you can take caffeine and it has a risk, and that's why there's a limit on how much caffeine you are allowed to take, and there's a limit on the product formulation on concentrated caffeine tablets. So that's what should be done in the kratom space. You don't, because there's a risk, doesn't mean you ban it. And he didn't seem to appreciate that. But I made the point that if the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Health in the state of Ohio thought it was good public policy to allow for kratom to be sold in a clear plastic bag with no labeling instructions nor serving size instructions, that was insane. I used that word, and I think the judge kind of laughed at that point because it is insane. I mean, it's just crazy. But anyway, that's one thing that's happening. We have a litigation that has been filed against the Department of Agriculture, and we're waiting for a court date. That one is the second litigation that we had to file, because in the first case against the Board of Pharmacy, we got an agreement and it was signed by the judge. And so the general gist of that is that the Board of Pharmacy cannot enforce any regulation on a product that was in commerce at the time that the rule was announced, that is a natural kratom leaf product, which includes beverages and extracts. The follow-on second complaint was filed by the GKC and their members, and so that one went to trial. And it was very interesting to read the transcript because it kind of locks the Department of Agriculture into the position that they were following exactly what the FDA was saying on their FDA and Kratom webpage. And now I think, and he's locked and loaded on, they can't change his testimony. And now we're going to be able to show the science demonstrates that the FDA's position is that kratom, based on the dose finding study and on the NIH announcement, where there was a clearance under the Institution Review Board that they're not going to put patients at an unreasonable risk for participating in a purified metrogenine investigational new drug clinical trial. And so I think that that's a combination of things will be persuasive in the trial with the Department of Agriculture. But we may end up with the Department of Health before we're done. It's just a crazy state in terms of those things. But I think it has incentivized the legislature in Ohio, because they had the JCAR meeting. Really interesting disagreement that emerged from that, because the co-chair of the JCAR committee in Ohio, which is the committee that oversees new regulations administered or presented by agencies, the representative of the Board of Pharmacy came in and said, well, this is what we're going to do. And he kind of generally described what he was going to do. And the co-chair said, well, I thought we had an agreement that you were not going to proceed with the natural. Well, we're going to meet the first week in July and we'll figure that out. So this coming couple of days here in next Monday through Wednesday, I think, is their meeting. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. So that's another issue that we'll just have to monitor and watch. But in the meantime, I think we're in good shape in terms of natural kratom leaf products, which includes beverages, with the Board of Pharmacy, and the others we'll just have to see how it plays out in court. So that's where we are currently. And if there is a case that's going to the Supreme Court, I missed it. I'm going to go back and check, but I don't think that's the status right now.
Well, I saw the other day on X how it's about the emails, the email back and forth between them. I believe that's what's going to the Supreme Court.
Oh, I'm going to have to look into that. I'm just not familiar with it. I apologize.
Yeah. I don't know, like, if that's being FOIA'd or what have you, but yeah, that's what I saw.
On that, send it to me because I'd love to dig into it.
Okay, because I reposted and I said, "Ooh wee, this is gonna get juicy."
Good.
Dave says, since they are finally making 7 a Schedule 1, do you think they'll let kratom come back into Tennessee?
Well, this is a political battle. You had a state representative who bought into the narrative provided by a family member that kratom killed their child. It's a powerful emotional tug. It is something that local legislators are susceptible to. There are a couple of things that we'll do in the next legislative session. First, of course, is to present the fact that the feds have now taken action and they've identified what the real problem is, and that should be considered by the legislature in their evaluation of what the right public policy is for Tennessee residents. Secondly, we'll have some experience in what the actual costs are, because we know that the fiscal note that was accepted by the legislature and the basis upon which the governor approved and allocated $1 million. It might have been as high as 1.2 million, but we know that the actual number is in the neighborhood of $20 million. And that's something that they can't afford. And so hopefully we'll be able to gather that information in this interim period between when it took effect and the next legislative session. That I think that will be the basis for our very powerful argument to persuade Tennessee to step back and allow natural leaf kratom products to be sold in the state of Tennessee.
All I know is that y'all have a fight ahead. Anybody living in Tennessee, you better get off your bouteilles and fight.
Amen.
Nick says, do you have an issue with the 0.05% alcohol level the DEA will allow?
Yes, and it's a technical thing. But the good news about what I'm about to tell you is that this is not unique. There are circumstances where a controlled substance, now in this case, any metrogeny-containing product with the limitation that's in place, that there's a safe harbor. It's not codified, but the DEA will allow for guidance for safe harbors, meaning that if you have material that violates the standard that's in transport or is in the production, what they're concerned about is the end product, the finished product. The finished product has to be compliant. So to the extent that we may have a problem with some products at that level, the opportunity is provided by the Secretary of HHS with their comment period. And this is an unusual procedure, by the way, because you saw DEA come out with 2 specific rules, temporary scheduling on 7-OH, and then on the follow-on synthetic products that are derivative of. So pseudodoxil and the
MGMs.
The MGMs, and they didn't mention that there's 8-OHs and 10-OHs. Mm-hmm. So that was great. But now the comment period, and we know that this comment period is going to be used by the 7-OH community to try to overwhelm with comments what they're doing. If you look at the actual invitation for comments, it's scientific information that relates to that level. So yeah, we'll have to match it. There's a lot of fall draw, but I don't think that there's going to be much consideration of the number of people that are commenting. They're looking for good data. So we're going to participate at that level. We're going to be providing as best we can the expert testimony and scientific information that looks at those specific levels. So there's a little concern about it, but the important thing on this is if you look at the introduction and you look at the various style of the actual provisions, there's clear guidance that this is for natural leaf being exempt from these issues, and they talk about the trace amounts of 7-OH and other things that are in the natural leaf plant, and what they're really focused on is those chemically enhanced components of the plant material. And so I think that'll be a good baseline for our discussions.
Okay, so the or the comment period opens up July 6th, right? But it's not for people's testimonies.
Well, if they'll accept them.
Yeah.
We're going to, as I say, we're probably going to have to launch a campaign so that there's no misinterpretation by anyone at HHS that because we're silent, we don't support this. So we're discussing how we're going to approach this, and we'll announce that first of the week. But the key factor here is they're looking for scientific information, and
right.
we're going to focus on that.
Karen says, are we going to lose MIT extracts due to the percentage allowed for 7-OH?
No, I don't think so. Now, the threshold's important. The problem that we have right now is that if you have naturally occurring levels of 7-OH, which they reference as less than 2%, then a specific level on the products, and if they use FDA food grade solvents, which is USP 467. That's all wonky and complicated, but there's a pathway for extracts to be available, and they will not be banned per se. There's going to be issues about formulations, and we're going to have to address those.
Yeah, because I figured it would be easy for the MIT extract companies to reformulate if they have to, you know?
Yeah, exactly. This is the interesting thing that sometimes gets overlooked. Most extracts are formulated by isolating the metrogenine, and they actually have less of the other alkaloids in their products, so less 7-OH, obviously. They might deconcentrate the MIT content rather than concentrating it. So it's a very interesting area for us to explore, but we're always at risk for people that are pushing the envelope inappropriately. So we'll just have to deal with that. We'll have to have a good, healthy discussion with the DEA and HHS about what the good science shows, and then I think we'll be okay.
Well, we got Jordan that hopped on board. We're
Hi,
looking at your.
I'm trying to fix my camera. I don't know what the heck I'm doing.
We're looking at your carpet.
I'm facing the wrong way. Just give me a second. Give me a second.
So while Jordan's doing that, one other thing that I just learned yesterday was that Nevada is not going to proceed with a recommendation for scheduling, but they are, even though they voted unanimously to do so, but they will in September have on their agenda a new workshop. And I think that's excellent because we strongly disputed what they did with the time and all that. So what we're told, and we're going to open up a discussion with this about how we can present our material, because it was disrespectful to not allow the same amount of time for the opposition. And we made that clear. I think the governor agreed with us. I think he probably has communicated to the Board of Pharmacy that wasn't the way to do it, but it was awful. So I think it's good news for two reasons. One is I think that they listened to the objections that we raised about the first workshop, and secondly, I think that what happened with the DEA set them back because there's a clear distinction that they didn't make. I mean, they meshed it all together. It was almost like I was talking to Dean Francis when I'm talking to people. because they like to throw everything together and call it all kratom. So I think this is all great news, but we're going to have to educate them. And so that'll happen in whatever the date is. They're meeting in September, so we're going to have to be there in force to get our voices heard.
You know, I believe it was the Connecticut Board of Pharmacy. It was one of those hearings that I watched where there was absolutely no opposition in there, and they did not differentiate between kratom and 7-OH. I believe it was Connecticut.
Well, I think Connecticut actually did their ban legislatively, but we can look into that. But
yeah, because it reminded what Nevada did reminded me of what I'm pretty sure it was Connecticut. But like I said, all these hearings they jumble together in my head.
Well, you're right. There was after the rule was passed.
Yeah,
it was the Department of, I think it's called Consumer Affairs or something, but they're the ones who held the hearing about whether to proceed, and they listened to nobody. I mean, it was crazy. You're absolutely right. I think but the legislature had already inserted it, and then it was up to that department, whatever their name is, to implement it. And they were supposed to hold a hearing, and they did. And you saw the overwhelming, of opposition, and it didn't matter.
Yeah, that here. Well, when we live streamed it that day, it was 8 hours long.
Yeah,
and it's like I forgot how many comments there were. There were like 400 and something pro comments, and then very little, opposition. But once again, weaponized grief overshadowed our positive testimonies.
Yeah, it was an embarrassment in terms of the way the process is supposed to work, and this weaponized grief. And I know that Wendy Chamberlain and her crowd don't like me saying that. I don't care. As much as they want to get on and talk to these legislators and local governments and plead their case, that's fine. I respect that. They're allowed to do it. I don't care when they object to our saying that we should have a say too. And when they weaponize their grief, what they are doing is they're trying to say, oh, nobody has a right to look at the information and data that we have. But I'm putting out the next episode of End Kratom Misinformation that shows the pathway of how these irresponsible conclusions by coroners and medical examiners over the past 10 years has led to this hysteria about kratom deaths and how they're not scientifically supported. And that's the reality of the situation. And we can take the individual cases if they want and show that their claim that this was kratom only, relying upon a sympathetic coroner or medical examiner who just kind of went along for the ride, that those days are done. And we're simply not going to stand by and let them do it. And the absurdity of Wendy Chamberlain to tell people, don't give up your tox screen or your autopsy. Well, what is the pursuit that we're really after here? I think it's the truth. And the truth, by the way, is owed to those families. And I think the mistakes made by, or the sympathetic gestures made by medical examiners and coroners are shameful, because it deprived people of these families of the truth. But I think that when they want public policies to be derivative of their claims, then they have to be out there. There have to be a truthful and honest examination of what the actual report says. And I remember in Montana the plea of the woman that said, "We just want to be heard." Well, why do they get to be heard and we don't?
Yeah,
the very substantive issues. Why would you come and have a discussion about whether kratom was responsible for the death of anyone? They say it was. Why are we not allowed to say, well, the data and evidence don't support that? I mean, it's welcome, but they're locked and loaded. They want it always, and that's really unfortunate.
Yeah, it's like, why are we not allowed to question that? If we went off of "trust me, bro," this world would be in shambles. Well, it kind of already is in shambles, but it would be just a crapshoot.
Yeah.
Regulate Kratom Now says, when you go to enough hearings, you notice KDA gets choked up at the exact same line every time. Yes, you do. It's like I say, it's like they're reading a script, and it's like it's got an asterisk right there saying "cry here." or something.
Yeah, I mean, this is a sensitive issue. The emotions are strong, and I respect that. But there might be some performative kinds of things going on. I particularly am not very trusting of Patty Wheeler, who has experience in Hollywood, knows about acting, and I watch her, and I watch the way that she presents, and she's literally, and I've talked to her when she first asked me to be on her documentary. Her pitch to me was, I am not out to ban it. I am only here to regulate it. And that's what our documentary is about. And then she repeated it over and over again until she landed in Salt Lake City. And then something magical happened because she got under the influence of Senator McKell. And Senator McKell says, oh, well, regulation isn't our game. We want to ban it. And so she became a convert. And suddenly, when she's talking to reporters in Salt Lake City, where just 4 days before she was on a podcast saying, we are not trying to ban it. We respect that there are people that can use kratom, that it's benefiting. We're not trying to take it away from them. We just want good regulations. That is what she said on a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And then a couple of days later, she's sitting in Salt Lake City under the influence of the mastermind of all public relation lies, Senator Mike McKell. And he's got her all convinced that if she's going to get attention, and that's the game, get attention, you have to call for a ban. And you hook it right to the death of your son. So here she is saying to a reporter in Salt Lake City, when he asked her, are you sure that it was kratom that killed your son? And her answer was 100% because the coroner told her so. Well, this is an interesting thing. And by the way, I don't doubt that happened. I think that when it was reported to the coroner in that particular case that this kid was using massive amounts of metrogenine prior to his death, which led to the seizure and his death. That was what was told to the coroner. I'm sure that, medical examiner, I think is really the right title there. The medical examiner said, hey, then that's what we'll put down as a kratom death. But the tox screen, the tox screen isn't lying, right? Unless somebody goes back and tries to manipulate it. Mm-hmm. But we have a tox screen, and it is publicly available. We FOIA'd it, we got it. And the tox screen says that this kid, using massive amounts of metrogenine immediately prior to his death, which led to a seizure, had tested positive for metrogenine, but not quantifiable. That's not scientifically possible. And so that's the conundrum that they're in. But this is, we're not allowed to talk about that because it's insensitive. We're not allowed to talk about that because how can we doubt the integrity of a coroner or medical examiner? Well, I don't know. I think these coroner and medical examiners need to read what the Centers for Disease Control said in 2019 when they analyzed so-called 91 deaths that were associated with kratom, only 7 of which were kratom only, and then they got debunked on those. But the CDC's report, and it's never talked about, said that because of the lack of standardization of post-mortem investigations from office to office and state to state, that has to get cleared up. Otherwise, you won't have consistent data that could be relied upon. Well, I don't know, state legislators. And then you go back to Tennessee. I mean, how in the world can anyone with a straight face stand up there and say this was a kratom death when that kid had massive amounts of Benadryl in his system? And we know what the effects of that are. And that there is a dose of Benadryl that's going to cause an overdose death. But this is part of this hysteria that it created. And I get it that these families feel strongly, and I respect the fact that they are grieving parents. I respect the fact that they actually believe what they're saying. That's fine, but the evidence and data has to support it. We had in 2016 a group of zealots at the FDA, which included Scott Gottlieb, who would say with straight faces, because they believed it, that kratom needed to be banned. And when an independent review was done of the evidence and data, the Secretary of Health, who typically is a cheerleader for the FDA, said this was embarrassingly poor evidence and data and a failure to assess the overall public health. This is what we've been fighting, and now we've turned that corner because we now know much more about the science behind the actual activity with kratom. We know a lot, for example, that I didn't know 2 or 3 years ago that now has emerged in the science that metrogenine actually competes at the opioid receptor with 7-OH, which accounts for why in a metrogenine product that's dominant, why you don't see as many effects of 7-OH. But if you flip it and it's a majority 7-OH product, it overwhelms metrogenine, which is why you get the euphoric high, why you get the fast crash, why you get the respiratory suppression. I mean, we're learning a lot on this science, but it's good stuff. And that should inform public policy. It shouldn't be hidden. It shouldn't be, sloughed off. And when I hear Michelle Ross, Miss Ross get up there and say, "Oh, you can produce 7-OH in your body," it's true, but the metrogenine metabolized at such a slow pace that you never get blood plasma levels that are equal to or come close to 7-OH products.
Mhm.
But what she ignores, and it's deliberate, it's there's no way that being the chief science officer, whatever she calls herself, of Seven Hope Alliance, that she could not know the facts that was printed in the scheduling notice at the DEA. And you look at it closely, and it says, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't have it in front of me, but you look at it closely, and it says that like 60 some percent of the products that are available in 7-OH are chewable tablets and sublingual. These are the product forms that she says are no longer available. She says it with a straight face. She says it like it's true. It is not. And she gets mad at me because I won't call her doctor. I told her, earn it. Tell the truth. Let's get accurate information out there. Not the truth, accurate information. Because we can all assess things differently. But when the DEA, who is charged with the responsibility of making a conclusion about the scientific evidence, says that the condition of the marketplace is how I've described it, and then you have the utter lies out there from the 7-OH manufacturers, there's something wrong with that. And so, again, there are a couple people that I know that I'm not going to receive a Christmas card from, and I think Ross is one. I think Francis is another, maybe a few others. But you know what? That's great, because I think that we need to find the truth, not this crusade in order to ban natural kratom leaf products.
Maybe God will tell Dean to send you a Christmas card.
I just did a video where I said that bad news for Dean was that God was calling him, but it was from the offices of the FDA and the HHS commissioner.
I saw that video. I saw that video last night. You need to upload it on YouTube so I can share it out.
Okay, I'll do that.
Jordan, do you have any questions for Mac?
Yeah, of course. So in states that did ban natural leaf, like say like Connecticut, do we have, now that the DEA has come out with clear distinctions, are you guys in contact with anyone to bring like new legislation next session in these states, say like Tennessee, Connecticut, anything like that?
So the answer to that's too soon. This just got published.
Yeah.
We have had conversations specifically in Connecticut after the decision that we talked about just a little while ago by this department that affirmed the legislative direction to ban kratom. We talked to the leadership of the Senate, and they understood it completely. It got slipped in at the last minute. No one knew what was going on, and now the outcome from this evaluation, and it's public. Everyone knows that the vast majority of people opposed that, but yet they rammed it through anyway. So the predicate in Connecticut was we were coming back anyway.
Okay.
That between now and when there are a couple things that happen in state legislatures. You get interim committees, and that's where you have the opportunity to present legislation. So we're going to be very active in prior to the sessions, and the committees vet them. So it'll be a busy time in the fall with these committee hearings. And then you have the legislative hearings of the actual legislative session. So we're going to be very active, and we're going to be promoting this. And if the stars align and the FDA changes the language in their FDA and Kratom webpage, which they say they're going to do, and assuming they do it the right way, then we're going to be very aggressive in the states with a high degree of success in making sure the distinguishing factor between natural kratom leaf and 7-OH is the clear public policy that is adopted.
Well, hopefully the FDA doesn't have a trust me bro moment. I hope they stick
Right.
to their word.
Yeah, but also too, wasn't it the governor of Kansas that said if the FDA and DEA set clear distinctions that she would have like reversed signing that or something like that? Not that she can reverse signing it, but that would have swayed her decision, or is that hearsay?
No, she did say that it was a close call for her, and that she would really welcome federal direction on this. So that's another opportunity to go back and unwind something. I mean, each state's going to be a little different. You look at Louisiana and you say to yourself, is there any way that we can get Representative Leo to change her position because the facts don't support the lie that she told on the floor of the Louisiana House, and
Mhm.
it's very unlikely. Someone else is going to have to do it, and because she wouldn't talk to us. I was on a with a reporter from Louisiana 2 days ago, and they asked me about this, and I said, she said in May of 2025
5. Mhm.
that there's no such thing as synthetic, and 2 months later you have HHS secretary and the FDA commissioner saying we're recommending the banning of synthetic products. I mean, but she's so angry now. She should welcome the truth. She should welcome that there's actually been an evaluation at the federal level. So I think we'll overwhelm her, and maybe she'll try to find some way. I hope she does, because it's good for the consumers in the state of Louisiana to have truth being the basis for a policy decision like that.
All she got to do is admit she's wrong.
That's not going to happen. I think we'll have to have some sort of epiphany that, not that it's wrong. I don't mind if she wants to say she was misled. I don't mind if she says, "Hey, now that I've seen this new science, it changes the policy." But I was right at the time when I said it in May of 2025. No such thing as synthetic. I was right. There might have been chemically manipulated products. I mean, whatever politicians do. The one that I have no faith in, that I have absolutely zero optimism about, is Mike McKell in Utah. This guy's a media hound. He doesn't care about the truth. He clearly didn't. He refused to talk to us or anyone else. Went to the caucus of his fellow Republicans, and of course, it's a Republican-dominant state, and he told them in the caucus, "You can pass this bill because we negotiated with the kratom industry and stakeholders, and they accepted this." That was a bald-faced lie, and he told
Wow.
everybody. And that's what led to the passage of that. That happens in the heat of legislative sessions. We can't really know until after it's done, but that's what happens sometimes. And that's one that we're going to have to go in and have a full-blown argument about the science in Utah, because we're not going to get a fair hearing from Mike McKell. And I think that hopefully people in his caucus will see that he wasn't being truthful with him when all this was going on.
Hopefully they'll see that his pants are on fire.
Do
He's
you
a
do
liar,
you
liar.
think do you think he's gonna come back for a full ban in Utah?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
And that'll give us a chance to amend his bill and do this right. Clearly, now 7-OH is scheduled in Utah. That's fine, but they've restricted natural leaf kratom products so absurdly in terms of where they can be sold. It's really unfair. And then, of course, no extracts. Now, there's an interesting provision in that bill that I've been working on, where it defines what an extract is, and it defines it as components or compounds of Metrogynous speciosa, and then it says that are concentrated. And there are some extracts that are not concentrated. So I've been working with the AG's office out there, and we're trying to figure out if we can find a pathway to fix that.
You are absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wasn't it like basically it seemed like the whole state of Utah was against kratom, at least when I was there, like the Department of Agriculture, those guys. I remember Laura Romney giving a testimony, and the guy's like literally like rolling his eyes like right behind her, like right on. I found that like super like disrespectful. I forgot who he was. He was this guy with like a beard. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Forsyth.
It's Brandon Forsyth and his boss, Commissioner Pearson. Now, this is, look, these guys. It's their business to try to protect the public, and sometimes they're zealots about it. In this case, they got it wrong. It was really interesting when the commissioner and Brandon testified in the House hearing, and I'd already testified, so I couldn't correct it. But the commissioner said, there's no science that documents this, and we never received anything from the American Kratom Association. Now, I had sent him a library of over 1,300 scientific, peer-reviewed, published articles, and I stopped him as he was leaving the hearing room, and I said, Commissioner, what you said was inaccurate. I sent this, and he said, no, you did not. And he reached out and almost poked me in the chest. And Forsyth was right behind him, and Forsyth said to me, well, Mac, the science you sent didn't say what you says it says. Well, that's different than saying I didn't send it. So what I think happened, I don't know, but I think happened is Forsyth got it but didn't share it with Pearson. So anyway, this is a battle, and there's one thing that I worry about is that we've got so many of these battles that we get stretched too thin. That's why we need advocates. We need everyone to be engaged and do the best we can. I mean, none of us is perfect. We may trip up, but one thing's true, at least in my opinion, that you pick warriors to be in your foxhole when you have these battles. And when I'm thinking about who I want in my foxhole, I know who they are. And you're on here today. We need to be battling against this stuff, and we need good warriors.
We got warriors in the comments too. I just haven't clicked on all of them. Can you guys see the chat?
No.
Oh.
I can't. And for California, I know that AB 1088 got dropped. Is there any possibility of new legislation, or that's just a done deal? Like, what's going on?
Well, with this change at the federal level, it is technically possible for this to be raised from the dead. Whether the right kind of impetus behind that is available to us, we don't know yet. We have a call scheduled Monday with our California team. We're gonna figure out some pathway. I mentioned earlier, Jordan, that I want to go to war and change our strategy and be much more aggressive in California.
Yeah, so be ready, Jordan.
So was it the sponsor that just decided to drop the bill?
No. She did drop it, but it was the chair of the Senate Health Committee was going to amend her bill and ban all kratom. And they tried to negotiate it and didn't get anywhere. And the argument, from, as I understand it, from the Senate Health Chair was that she believed that the Department of Public Health was correct, and based on what she knew about what the FDA was saying. So that's what's going to have to change to convince her. But given this change, which is clearly articulated in both the press statement that HHS and FDA made, and it's recognized in the language of the rule by DEA, that this is not targeted towards natural kratom leaf products. And that being the case, there should be the same distinguishing demarcation in the California policy approach. So hopefully we'll persuade them on that. It really will be Lazarus from the dead if we can do it. But there's technically a way to do it, and we're going to see if we can take advantage of that.
So for now, it's still just like this gray zone type of situation.
It's just floating.
Absolutely is.
Gotcha.
Yeah, Tracy. Yeah, we need advocates in Oneida County, New York. Yep, that's going to be popping off next week.
Well, and there's another thing where another person that is not going to send me a Christmas card, and that's Andrew Kolodny, and he's showing up at all these things, and very interesting what he does. He testified in Suffolk County, and he said, I'm not an expert on the import alerts. And then he told everything that has ever been talked about by anybody about the import alerts and acted like an expert. Mm-hmm. This is what he does. Incredibly, he has said over and over again that, I was out of actually treating patients, but now that I'm back treating patients, and he told me this personally, he said, every patient I see, every one that comes in has got kratom involved in it. And I thought it's almost laughable. Statistically, how could that be possible? Until when he testified up in Suffolk County, he showed his hand. He said that he is brought in to consult on cases that are already determined to be kratom implicated. Not that the reason why they like to claim that, but we don't have the evidence and data on those cases. But there's no. He wants to act like there is a major crisis because every patient I see, everyone is a kratom addiction when they come for him to see him. He's a referral guy, and they bring him in to talk to people that claim that they are kratom implicated. I mean, this is laughable that he'll say that with a straight face and act like he's not going to get caught. I mean, it's like, it's like working at McDonald's and he says, oh, well, everybody comes in wants to buy fast food. Well, okay.
Regulate Kratom now says everyone my cardiologist sees has heart disease.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, this guy is a con man. And so we're going to have to aggressively point out all of the errors he makes. And, he's looking for a landing spot here. I listened to him down in Georgia, and it was stunning. Same thing in Suffolk County. He's just out there acting like he's the patron saint of protecting all patients, when in fact he is anything but, and he needs to be called out. He criticizes me and says, oh, well, you're a lobbyist, and I don't have anything in this game. What is he talking about? Of course, he's looking to be an expert witness in litigation cases. Of course, he wants to be a consultant. He wants to get in with his buddies with Suboxone. He's got all kinds of angles here, and we're just going to have to be diligent in fighting back on him. And I'm ready. I'm ready to go to war with that son of a gun. Anyway.
What's going on in Michigan?
Jordan, sorry, Mac. He came in late, so he wasn't listening.
Sorry. Did you guys already talk about that?
Yeah, Michigan is dead for this session. We expect that Speaker Hall will come back and try to do a ban again next year, made obviously more complicated by what the feds have done. So he will have less of a platform to work on. But we escaped his bullying in Michigan last night, or the night before. So we're good.
And
how so though? Like I'm just curious. Like enough senators said no, we're not doing this type of thing.
So this got converted from a discussion about the bill itself and was a part of the budget negotiations. And Speaker Hall made kratom his number one priority. Told the Senate president that he was going to hold up the budget over this, and unless the Senate yielded, and the Senate said no. So, I think they've gotten the same call from God, from
Dean.
From Dean, yeah. Well, from HHS and the FDA.
Yeah, because someone like me that doesn't understand a lot, I understand like a lot about kratom, but I don't understand a lot about like politics or how everything works behind the scenes. So to me, it's very interesting. I'm learning a lot.
Well, I'll tell you, this is my 50th year in working in public policy, and I don't know how it works, because you see what these people do, the shenanigans they play. The one thing is that whatever they can do, they'll do. So you just have to kind of be the Dutchman sticking your finger in the dike as best you can in order to fight these battles, because they'll be creative.
Makes sense. So obviously all the advocates reaching out made a difference in the Senate, though, because if they're saying, no, we're not going to do this, and you have one of the main guys saying, like, we have to do this, obviously we're getting through, correct?
This is a great example of exactly what you just said as being true, because what we had behind us, we had our lobbyists in there. I was making phone calls, talking to the Senate leadership. We had our advocates, our lobbyists were in there, but this was just a head-to-head battle. And you had Speaker Hall that was saying, oh, well, they're those lobbyists are terrible people, and the sort of normal thing. And then behind us, we had all of these advocates that were emailing and calling. It was fabulous. So absolutely, that's why we won the day there in Michigan. No question in my mind.
You had the troops who strapped up their boots.
Yeah, we had to be in there with the normal kinds of discussions at high levels. That's important. But then to be able to for these individual senators to say, my emails and phone calls are getting blown up, and I'm sorry, Speaker Hall, and they think actually in Michigan that Speaker Hall is related to Mike McKell because he's as big a media hound as McKell is.
I saw it. I saw it.
Was he the one that said that they're importing this from China? Was that the same guy?
Yes.
Yeah, it was, huh?
Well, no, let me tell you something. He heard this obviously, but when I was in Thailand, the minister.
No, that was Cam Cavett. Sorry. I believe that was Representative Cam Cavett.
You might be right. You might be right.
Yeah.
But the Minister of Justice told me they were shutting down 7OH plants, and I think there were 5 that they had targeted, and they said that 3 of them were operated by China. So I have no doubt that 7OH manufacturing went through China, and they're dumping it into the United States, which would have been in direct competition with the U.S. 7OH manufacturers. So that's going to be a black market we'll have to plug. But they shut them down in Thailand. They just said we're not putting up with that, and that was great. So yeah, I think there's some element of truth. But what he got wrong was that he thinks kratom comes through China. It does not. Yeah. It's 7OH because 7OH is an opioid, and guess what? China likes to deal in high value profiteering on these kind of substances, and 7OH just the newest one. And I'm sure that Vince Sanders and the others that are involved in that industry didn't like the competition from China. But I think it's true that it was coming in.
Okay, so do you think that kratom was accidentally scheduled in this DEA announcement for 7OH?
No, I know the concern. I understand it. There are always corrective actions that can be taken on this, but I do not believe it was. I know that Michelle Ross thinks that, and you consider the source on that. These are. When you look at the actual descriptive language in each of the sections of the rule, they specifically are talking about enhanced concentrated levels, of which there is no such thing with natural kratom leaf products. We do have to explain and be a part of the discussions with respect to extracts, but that's going to be a reconciliation of what the reality is. There's no chemical enhancement. The way that Michelle Ross, who's now all of a sudden pretends to be the great expert in this, she's been wrong in virtually everything she said with respect to kratom versus 7OH.
I still think about and someone clipped up that part over there on X about how she said that if you think 7OH should be scheduled, then kratom should be scheduled as well. Pretty much in California, she said this in California.
I know.
I was there.
She's like the schoolyard bully. It's my way or we're taking everything away. It's ridiculous. And there ought to be reasonable discussions, and you can't have it with her, can't have it with Dean Francis. I mean, they can't have it with a number of people, but there ought to be reasonable discussions. And this is one that falls apart when her narrative about why kratom and 7OH are the same thing. And she forgets the critical step, that when you chemically enhance metrogeny, it's no longer metrogeny. That's what she wants to people. She pretends that's the accuracy of it, and it's not. She just got it wrong.
Why are people thinking they accidentally scheduled kratom? Why are people saying that?
Because people like Michelle Ross are saying it. The loophole.
Yeah.
But I think people are reading it and they're concerned. Because these levels might implicate, the actual material. Now, this is where it's important. There's a provision, a practice, I should say, by the DEA that when they schedule a substance, that there is a safe harbor provision where the material is being transported, or in the production, if it gets above those levels, what they are concerned about is the finished product. And so the safe harbor would apply to levels that somehow are implicated by the rule during that period of transport of material or production of products. They would have a safe harbor against them. This is going to take some discussion with the DA, make sure that everybody's on the same page. But this is this is an enormous positive step for the kratom consumer community. And I get questions. I get the fact that there's concerns, but let's not get drawn into the hysteria that's being thrown out there to deliberately divert attention. The 708 people are going to do everything they can to try to act like, oh, well, this is also going to ban kratom too, because it's not true.
Well, it's specifically said too, like we're not targeting the natural
Mhm.
leaf. You know, I mean, how many times did it say that? I mean,
I
I've
read a
heard that.
couple times,
Yeah.
No question.
and it's like, so do you feel like the Seven Hopers have a chance to overturn this or stop this? Like 2016, DEA and them came after Kratom. You guys submitted all the info, got public comments, were able to overturn it within 6 weeks, right?
Yeah, it was October 13th when the DEA decided to withdraw it, and it was submitted on August the 31st. So there are three conditions that were present in 2016 that are not present today. First is that the number of members of Congress who were willing to defend natural kratom leaf had a basis to do it with the people that were being able to document the safety of kratom. I mean, you had experts in the field that were submitting information, and I think that's not something that the 7OH people, as much as they want to try, can create a scientific database that doesn't exist. And if it did exist, they would have produced it already. So they do not have the science in order to persuade public officials to go on the line to write a letter to the DA. There'll be some, but it won't be as significant as it was back in 2016. The second thing is that, and I reference it generally here, is that they don't have the ability to produce any kind of science that will help them persuade on a scientific basis or undermine what the rule itself says. And the interesting thing here is that there is no comment period officially for the rule. There is for the levels which
Mhm.
HHS will receive, not DEA, because under the Controlled Substances Act, this goes into effect 30 days from the date of publication, which is going to happen on Monday. So you'll see on August 6th, this is the law of the land. Now, the third thing that they don't have is a champion like Orrin Hatch. I mean, Orrin Hatch was the leading, well-known advocate for dietary supplements. He, at the time himself, was a kratom consumer. And when he weighed in with the DEA administrator, he made it clear that that he was a consumer of it, that the information that was provided by the FDA was wrong. And of course, he had a long-standing experience with the FDA that led to, with their antics about dietary and botanical supplements, which led to the passage of the DSHEA Act in 1994, which he championed. So they don't have that. I don't think any senator is going to stand up there and say, "Oh, I take 7OH every day." I mean, this is because that
Or
might
openly admit that.
I
Right,
had no idea Orrin Hatch took kratom.
I didn't either.
he was in a plane accident when he was a private attorney in St. George, Utah, at a time when that airport was in a very dangerous location. And the plane landed, broke apart on the runway. He ended up with a serious back injury. So he was in chronic pain throughout his life and always looking for options. In 2015, he found kratom, and he was a active daily consumer of it. And I think that is something, and with his stature that he had built in all of the efforts that he had on behalf of the dietary supplement industry and botanical supplements throughout his career, gave him standing that cannot be just created out of whole cloth. The 7OH people don't have that as a champion. They don't have the science, and they don't have the groundswell of members of Congress who are willing to put their name on a letter when the science is so overwhelming here with 7OH. You had millions of people in 2016. You have a couple 100,000 that may be on 7OH at this point. They're not going to get 51 signatures on a letter, I don't think. And so that's the lay of the land, the landscape that we're in right now. The rule is that they will publish this the 30-day window is to provide notice to the public and allows retailers to get and the manufacturers to get their products out of the pipeline, off the shelves, and then it becomes a felony for anyone to manufacture, to distribute, to retail it, or possess it.
I
Now,
hate that part.
I don't agree with that part either, but that's the law. And there's not a thing that they can do about that. It'll happen. There's no judicial review and there's no public comment on the rule itself. So you have two rules that the DA has issued that will become the law of the land in 30 days after they publish on Monday. So the tinkering with under the HHS request for information, that's all it is, with the levels is something that can inform the DEA, and they could make a change.
Okay.
And if they make a change, it might happen, in a month. It could happen in 6 months or a year. They could do it. At the end of 2 years, under this rule, two potential pathways are available to the DEA. They can proceed with permanent rulemaking, which is what they normally do. They also are allowed to get a third year for additional review, and that can be ordered by the Attorney General. So we'll see how that plays out for 70H. But I think that their wish that they could convince consumers, and I know they've got a big webinar scheduled and they're putting out information right now saying, "Oh, I know it looks bad, but it's not banned yet." Well, that's misleading because it will be, and
In 30 days.
In 30 days, and I suppose that I suppose that the same attitude that Vince Sanders had when the announcement was made back on July 29th of last year, when he was asked by distributors, should I pull from the shelves? Vince said, no, this is the greatest marketing we could ever have. Not concerned about the safety
The people.
He's concerned about his bottom line. And there will be a period during this 30 days where people can buy a lot of 7OH and they can stock up. But when that runs
And it
out,
gonna last forever.
that's right. That's exactly right.
I do have a question though. Even if they gathered, let's say, a lot of signatures, some people are saying, I don't want this to go away. But even with that, based on the Controlled Substances Act, how is there a pathway forward? It doesn't make any sense because it seems like 7-hydroxy fits all the boxes to based on the Controlled Substances Act. I mean, I don't understand how signatures would change that.
Well, they won't. And it's just a charade that they're going to say, oh, let's get everybody to sign up and let's send a petition. The request for information, if you read it from the Department of Health and Human Services, Assistant Secretary for Health, is about gathering scientific information that's relevant to the levels that were proposed. And all that the HHS can do with that information is to submit it to the DEA for review. They're not going to submit, 50,000 comments from consumers. That's not the purpose of this rule. But 7OH people are going to try to do that. I think this will just be a show. They'll get a bunch of signatures on this and they'll present them. I get it, but that's not going to have a dramatic impact, and it certainly will have zero impact on the decision to proceed with the scheduling that will take place 30 days from July 6th.
Yeah. See, I didn't know that it was gonna it's written in black and white. It's not written in pencil where it's erasable. It's gonna be banned 30 days from July 6th. It's gonna have to be pulled from the shelves 30 days from July 6th, right?
Yeah, technically, anyone who still has a 7OH product that's covered by this rule will be guilty of a felony if they have it in their retail stores, if they have it in their distribution chain, or they have it in their factories. And in retail outlets, it's a felony. So now, how do you enforce it? Right? That's true for everything.
Yeah.
I think that there will be a period where there'll be a lot of reports about, well, they're still selling it here. So that's an important component of any enforcement of any of these kinds of rules. Then I think the key here is not going to be retailers. The key is going to be the distributors. The distributors aren't interested in going to jail. because they have a product that some manufacturer wants to sell. And I don't think it's going to take many when the feds come in and say, you're now being indicted for the sale, the distribution of 7OH. That's not going to take too many of those before the whole thing will dry up. That's just the reality of the market.
I mean, we're already seeing them. They're making MGM 15 or 16. I don't remember which one, and labeling it cat's claw. They're already stealing cat's claw plant. The name.
Yeah.
You know?
So that's another component of enforcement. It's not perfect, but when they take a product and then they test it and they say, well, this is an MGM 15 or 16 product, or this is a 7OH product, that's covered by the rule. They can't hide it because they call it something else. It's what the actual product is. And so as we identify these violative products and report them and they take action against them, then again, it's all about the gamesmanship. It will get cleaned up. It'll take a little while, but it'll get cleaned up. But I'll tell you the most important thing is that they aren't going to be able to have products in the market they call kratom. They're going to try. And then we report them, and that's going to dry up quickly when you get when you get indictments issued to get this cleaned up.
Do you think they're always going to try to come out with like new products, like stuff that I've never even heard of yet?
Of course they will. They'll look at what the rule is, and they'll say, okay, let's see if we can manufacture, tweak, and chemically manipulate this into something that's not covered under that rule. Now, yes, they will. So what component of the marketplace will they be able to sell that newly tweaked product to? There's always going to be a little bit of whack-a-mole in this. But I think that their appetite for being chased will dry up any of this activity. And I think they'll move on to something else. I mean, and not something that's going to get them in trouble. So hopefully that'll be the outcome. Now, there are going to be some that have nothing else to do. They've invested all this money. They've made tons of money over the last several years, and they're going to be hurting, and they're going to be like trapped dogs, and they're going to come out fighting. And we just expect that, but that'll just take a little bit of time to work through.
We're already, like, I know you're probably seeing your comments and Jordan's comments and my comments. It's like, have you all gotten death threats yet?
A lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, we're the big bad enemies. Like, oh my God, how dare you? No, 7OH did this to itself.
They did.
Got a couple more questions, and then you probably got to leave, huh, Mac?
I do. I'm taking my grandkids to a fireworks show tonight. They have fireworks the day before the 4th of July because DC is such a big thing on the 4th, and tomorrow is going to be huge. But we always the day before, so I'm headed out to the fireworks. And we're going to go barbecue and then the fireworks display.
Awesome.
That's why we were doing the live today because, like I said, Jen is taking care of her mom that had hip surgery, and tomorrow I'll be barbecuing.
Yeah, my son Lincoln turns 4 tomorrow on the 4th. So,
man,
Lincoln 4 on the 4th.
Yep, that's why we named him Lincoln. He's born on the 4th.
Congratulations on that.
Gabrielle says, are we worried about the next administration going further and banning the whole leaf, or are we expecting this to be a really positive thing for the natural leaf in the long run?
So I'm going to give you my assessment of this, and when I say it, understand anything can change. But my assessment is that this was a science-driven policy, not a political one. And this policy is well grounded in the evidence and data that's required under the statute to meet the 8 factors. And so whatever the next administration or the one beyond that does, everything's going to have to be based on its adherence to the 8 factors. Now, in this case, it's 3 factors, by the way. To do temporary scheduling, you only have to prove the abuse liability and the potential threat to people. So 3 of the 8 factors come into play. But in 2 years, they'll have all 8 covered. So everything that's done has to meet the criteria that is embedded in the Controlled Substances Act. Frankly, I'll tell you what we're going to try to do is in our federal KCPA, we are going to try to change the rule here to make sure that possession is not considered a felony. for people that are subject to these 708 rules, because it's not, that's our view. It's one that we think is important. But the federal law, the Controlled Substance Act, obviously has a wider net. So we're gonna try to help in that regard. But the bottom line is, any future changes are either statutory or have to adhere to the scientific provisions that are required under the Controlled Substances Act.
Okay, because yeah, like I said, I'm all for banning 7OH and its ugly stepsisters. Get them gone. But I always struggled with the whole possession thing because of Shayna and Marshall and all the other cases that we know of.
Right.
So I never agreed with that part. But where do what do you do? It's like we can't pick one or the other.
Listen, I need to correct you because while I usually agree with everything you say, it also includes the ugly step brothers, because we have to be politically correct.
Oh, my bad. And the ugly they thems.
Yeah, that too.
Okay, one more question, and then we can let you go. Do we report violative products to the local PD since the state KSA imports the federal schedules, or to the FDA DEA?
So this is a rule that's issued by the Drug Enforcement Administration. And so any referrals of violations need to be made to the DEA. There's local DEA offices everywhere in the country. They have regional offices. It may not be in your state, but they have a regional coverage. So those reports of the sale of violative products can be made. It's unlikely that a local government will do much about it, a local police department, but they're authorized to. But the question is, who's going to prosecute them? So I think referrals to the DEA are the best pathway because they are the agency. It's not the FDA. It's not HHS. This is the decision by DEA, and they're statutorily authorized to prosecute people that are involved in the manufacture, distribution, sale, or possession of a controlled substance.
Okay. And then one more question. When does Georgia meet again?
Well, I have not received a call from my good friend, Chairman Townsend, yet, but he promised me, Mac, you will be on the agenda the next time we have a meeting. I just haven't heard. We're looking forward to it, though.
Okay. Well, do you have any parting words,
Of course. Happy 4th of July.
Yes.
Think about what we did in 10 years ago, and we are going to celebrate that, by the way, on the date of the rally that was held at the White House and up at the Capitol on September 13th. So we have an event planned for people coming the 13th, 14th, and 15th. Sign up for that. It's great. But think about, we celebrate tomorrow this great experiment in freedom. And we have an opportunity now to be participating in a very positive way. And I said it when we were at the congressional briefing we held a month ago, that we're inside the Capitol this time instead of standing outside and rallying. And I think we keep getting closer and closer to the goal of getting good information out. But it's all about, the only thing we're asking is to give consumers the freedom to make informed choices about safely formulated, properly labeled, and age-gated products. We just want that freedom. And I think that we can celebrate that extra special on this 4th of July because of what the DEA finally did in order to bring this rule to a head. So fabulous time. And forgetting all of that, everything that we're doing together in this community, this is a great holiday for us to celebrate. And I hope everyone enjoys with their family the celebration about this country that allows us to have the kind of exercise of freedoms that we're having right now in this whole experience. So thank you very much.
Where do we sign up for do you have a link already for the rally and stuff?
This is beyond my pay grade.
Oh,
I'll make sure that it's up. I think it is.
okay.
I don't know that for sure. There are things that happen that are far beyond what I'm capable of even understanding.
Okay, I'm sure y'all send the email blast out next week. So make sure you send that link in there because I am going. I will be there.
Excellent.
All
right.
I'll be able to.
Good
Okay.
seeing you, Mac.
Well, happy semi-quincentennial.
There you go.
Bye, Mac.
See ya.
Well, that was
Misty?
good. I know that you were late popping on, so I don't know why
Sorry.
the link wasn't working.
Yeah, I don't. It kept going over and over and over again. I shut my phone down, then turn it back on, and then it works. So it's weird how that works out sometimes.
So I learned some stuff that I didn't know. First I didn't know Orrin Hatch took kratom.
I had no idea.
And
I
then
literally
the
had no idea.
whole 30 days from July 6th is when it's gone.
Yeah.
7OH is gone. I didn't know that.
Yeah. That's what it said. 30 days from that announcement. But gosh, man, you would think as soon as I made that video, it's like, oh my gosh, I've had so much like hate. It's
Yeah.
crazy. And I was never like, oh, this is such a good thing. I never said that. I literally just told people what like was happening, and you would think that like I like murdered someone.
Yeah. And
See?
you know what? It's like and just like I posted up today over there on X, I was like, let me go read what I freaking wrote because it's pissing me off. It's like how I'm like, you are high as F if you think I'm going to advocate to help save 7OH.
I won't do it.
No, what? And the what? 7OH is what's been taking Kratom down. Kratom is what's been saving me. I've been having to save Kratom because of 7OH.
Exactly. Yeah, I'll never fight with them. I mean, I even told a lot of the people like messaging me and sending me emails. I said, watch all my videos. I've made thousands of videos. The only time you'll ever hear me say the word ban is when I'm literally in front of lawmakers and Kratom is on the chopping block. You literally gave me no choice in that situation but to say ban this, save that.
Yeah.
I made lots of videos where I don't like 7OH. I explain people the differences there. I think a lot of the manufacturers are liars. Well, a lot of them are liars. I could even say they're all liars because they put Kratom on their product, but it wasn't like my day and night thinking, oh, I need to get this stuff banned. It's like, no, I need to tell people the differences and let it all play out, And it's like they feel like I actively like worked like to ban 7OH. It's never what I did.
You know what? It's like all these years since we've had to freaking fight against 7OH. We've had to fight because Kratom was pushed out in these communities and 7OH was pushed in. That's what we heard time and time again in these locality hearings. And it's like they would get up there and people would testify and they would talk about, oh, they had a problem with Kratom, but somewhere along the way in their testimony, they would slip in about graduating to 7OH. 7OH is what caused mass destruction in these communities. And of course, you're going to argue with me about it because you weren't in these hearings.
Exactly.
And it's like for me, it was building up. The pressure was building up and building up and building up all these years since I started talking about 7OH on a TikTok and on my other platforms, but mainly TikTok. And it's like at first I was like, yeah, no, it doesn't need to be. I didn't say it needed to be banned. It needs to be regulated and all that stuff. And then it got to the point where my pressure cooker top blew off, and I was like, you know what? Fuck it. So in Utah this year was when I testified and I said, ban it. Ban 7OH. That was the first time I ever publicly said that. You know what? And it's like, but all this time, I've been having to dedicate thousands upon thousands of hours, blood, sweat, tears to keep what's saving me legal. And you guys are going to attack me. You're going to attack George. You're attacking Mac. You're attacking the AKA instead of looking inwards and being like, oh, shit. 7OH really was the problem. Look at me. I can't go 2 hours without it. Like, duh, you're fucking addicted.
And the thing is, too, it's like even when people are saying regulate it, how do you regulate it based on the Controlled Substances Act? There is, I mean, I've read it. I've tried to figure it out because I'm like, oh, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is a way to like regulate this, but I kept doing more research, and it's people are getting mad at me. I'm simply saying like what reality is. Like we're in America. This is the Controlled Substances Act. Kratom doesn't meet the criteria for scheduling. 7-hydroxy does. Like, don't get mad at me for telling you the truth. Like maybe try to get the freaking Controlled Substances Act repealed. I don't know. I mean, I'm not even saying I support the Controlled Substances Act. I'm just saying that's what it is.
When a substance fits the criteria for the Controlled Substances Act, that's where it needs to be. put it there.
That's just, yeah, that's the law. I mean, if you don't like that law, and again, I mean, probably over the long run, it's done more harm than good in America. You know, like the war on drugs obviously has never worked, but we still have to do the best with what we have and within the laws that we're given. You know, and that is keeping natural kratom leaf available. I don't a lot of people have this, oh, well, 7OH, you know, is gone, then kratom needs to be gone too. So you want to be left with absolutely nothing? Like, how
I
stupid are you? Are you fucking, you're stupid.
I can't stand those comments. And then they talk about how, oh, they're gonna dedicate the rest of their life to get kratom taken down. I'm a bad kratom. What the fuck? You started off on kratom. Then you got on 7OH. And now 7OH is being taken away instead of going backwards to go back on kratom. Now you're gonna dedicate your miserable ass fucking life to take kratom down. What the hell?
Doesn't make any sense. It makes no logical sense. And the whole thing of like, I keep getting this comment and like message, and I don't know how some people have gotten my number. That's the weird part. Some people have actually gotten my phone number. And maybe I'm just too trusting because if people always need help, I'm like, here, just give me a call. You know, I've given my phone number out to so many people. So, I mean, it's my own fault, but still way too trusting. I trust way too much, too easily. But, yeah, it's like, oh, well, you guys just shot yourself in the foot. It's like, what did I do? I literally just fucking made videos telling people the differences between these two. Yes, I've testified a lot, and yes, I've said 7OH needs to be banned when I'm fucking staring at a freaking senator who wants to take the plant away. Duh.
Yeah. When I first started talking about 7OH, all I was doing was showing the science or lack thereof on the science.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden, one day, it's like I got an influx of comments and messages. I don't know why. It was like a tidal wave, you know, of all these people that were scared because they're addicted. They were like, we were given this free sample, you know, and then I'm spending $1,000 a freaking week. The amounts of money that people told me, I am like, you could have freaking bought a brand new car.
Mhm.
Like, but here you are. I don't say this to them, but here you are filling up the pockets of some motherfucker that's just going to go grift in a different community. He's,
Mhm.
you know, he already did cannabis, you know, and then he went to the hemp, and then he went to the spice, then he went to the 7OH. You know, grifters. Grifters are freaking evil.
Yeah. I get it.
Sorry, I'm going to answer this question. See, when Jen's not here, Jen's usually the one who's putting the comments on screen. I didn't realize you were going live. Did Mac have any info about Kentucky? The only thing I know about Kentucky is that ban doesn't go into effect until July 1st of 2027.
July 1st or January 1st?
July 1st. July 1st,
Okay.
2027. I know Mac had said it wrong that one time. But it will give you guys time to go in their next legislation session to now you got the DEA notice. You know, now you could, because I know that Kentucky already did an emergency ban on 7OH, you know.
They did.
But 30 days from July 6th, all that shit's supposed to be removed from the shelves.
I mean, that gives a lot of leeway to people in Kentucky, you know, especially for the lobbyist on the natural leaf side. You know, I think a lot of people were very confused, but now whether you agree with the ban or you don't agree with the ban, that doesn't negate the fact that now there's clear distinction from the federal government. And again, as much as I think positions from authority are kind of stupid, that's kind of what these lawmakers need. Oh, the DEA said to schedule this, but not this. So, okay, we'll listen to that, you know?
Uh-huh.
So,
I mean, hell, when they're making their decisions to vote, they constantly talk about the FDA and Kratom webpage.
mhm.
You know, now they could say the DEA, hey, they're scheduling 7OH. And you know what? Like I posted on the X the other day, I was like, I wonder how many lawmakers and policymakers are sitting back thinking, oh my God, these advocates were telling the truth when they were testifying.
Probably at least a lot. I mean, there's some, definitely some.
Because we've been advocating since July of last year when the first announcement came out.
Mhm.
You know, and that's when all these hearings started popping off like freaking popcorn. It's like left and
Yeah.
right, up and down.
Yeah, and one thing I've never agreed with too with the 7OH crowd is like kratom's always been under attack. It's like, oh, which is somewhat true, but they're like, it was already banned in 7 states or 6 states. Well, that all happened because of the DEA back in 2016. You had all those states, bam, 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 that literally just followed through, even though the DEA changed their mind. Things were silent for a long time. Then you had Louisiana pop up.
Yeah.
Then everything started going like crazy, and that's just on a state to state level. We never had to testify before 70H came into the market. They're like, oh, well, if you're gonna, they'll talk about like feel free. Feel free is literally a drop in the bucket compared to
Yeah.
70H. Like with the amount of people struggling with it. Of course, I've definitely heard people saying, oh, I had an issue with those. I would never deny reality, because that's what some people have told me, but it's nothing in comparison, like not even close. Yeah, we never had to testify before all this stuff really came onto the market. So
Especially at
yeah,
the locality hearings. Never did I have to
exactly.
testify. It's like I would sit there and watch some of them, just every now and again would pop up. But other than that, no, we didn't have to testify at all.
Hmm.
There was such a cooling down period that happened since 2016. Actually, since 2016, 2019, then 2021, when the World Health Organization looked at it. But there was a cooling down period. And then you had Vince Sanders and all his little cronies being like, "Oh, we ain't gonna wait forever. Let's just mass produce this now. Let's get it while it getting's good."
Yeah,
And use
to
the
me it's
whole
selfishness.
yes, yes. And it's like we're gonna use the entire population as a human experiment, human science experiment. We don't have no science, but let's use these dumbasses over here. You know, and then
Yeah.
Kratom again got dragged in the mud.
Yeah, I always tell people too, like, I feel like so many people are obviously reacting with emotions, and it's true, we're all people and we do have emotions, but it's never like logical. And logically, people are, I get it all the time, like, well, I should have the right to choose. Yeah, you should have the right, but you don't. Like, that's what we live in. It's That's just America. There's some countries that have decriminalized all drugs, like, I know, like, I think some parts of like South America and everything, but that's not reality here.
Yeah,
So again, it's like, instead of living in reality saying, okay, well, this is our circumstances, I might as well just advocate for the leaf, because they're obviously going to ban something. Lawmakers want to feel like something is being done about this. There's only ever two options. Nothing other than these two. Both kratom and the synthetics get banned. Both of them, or just the synthetics and the natural leaf stays. There's no other options. Whether you can dream and hope and wish that, whereas there's not. There's
there's
not.
no way that they can coexist at all. Maybe if 7OH came out onto the market and not called itself Kratom, then we would, us Kratom advocates and consumers, wouldn't even be having no beef. Do you? I don't give a fuck what you do over there. Go on, get on. But that's not what happened.
Well, I mean, yeah, true. I mean, that's true. I would never talk about it, but still, even based on the Controlled Substances Act, like,
Oh yeah, yeah,
like, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm sorry if you don't like the Controlled Substances Act. I don't really like it either, to be honest.
yeah.
But again, that's still what reality is. It's black and white. And yeah, we get a lot of hate for that, though. Like, a lot of hate. And I know you get it too.
Yeah.
You know,
I
unfortunately.
have just walked away from a bunch of comments, and I've just blocked a bunch of comments. It's like, you are not going to suck up my Kratom energy.
Hmm.
No, hell no. You over there opioid raging? Not my fault. I survived addiction from opioids. I kind of know what you're going through right now. Take some
Yeah,
Kratom.
yeah. I just
And
don't get.
then the other comments I get, well, Kratom isn't enough for me. Kratom isn't enough for my chronic pain. What were you doing before 7OH came along? You were taking Kratom.
Yeah, I I mean, I definitely understand some people have severe chronic pain, and thank God they'll still have access to like extracts and stuff, because that's what people should, obviously that's what's still going to be allowed. So that's what people should be using if they have really, really bad chronic pain, that they say natural powder doesn't work. I mean, there's I'm just, people are like, oh, you guys don't care about chronic pain patients. I care about chronic pain patients so much that I fought for kratom. Like that's how much I care about them, because they were gonna have nothing, and
I'm I'm a chronic pain. Well, I'm no longer a chronic pain patient. I'm a former chronic pain patient. I refuse to go back to the doctors and be labeled with a damn customer number, you know.
Mhm,
But I care so much about chronic pain patients that I even advocated for opioids, you know? Not for
mhm,
me, even though I was addicted to them. I was addicted to opiates, benzos, and muscle relaxers, but that was me. That was a me problem.
mhm.
It wasn't the opiates. They didn't freaking, you know, slam themselves in my mouth every 2 hours.
Yeah.
That was me.
No, I get it 100%, and it's like I feel like a lot of the 7OH people have like stole what we've been saying for years and years and years. They basically just stole all of our lingo, exactly what we were saying, and then just like made it their own, and then saying like we're the ones that are wrong, we're the crazy ones. I mean, as soon as I saw my first time I ever saw a 7OH product, my heart dropped. It literally did. When I saw that, I was like, I cannot believe this is a thing, because for years I was reading the work of Dr.
Yep.
McCurdy, who was warning about all this stuff, and then like seeing it actually come into fruition was like, holy shit, like this is not going to be good for kratom. This is going to be horrible for public perception. Like I knew exactly what was going to happen, and I mean, unfortunately, that's what came to be, and yeah, it's just a very, 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 very unfortunate situation, and I do feel for people that are scared. Though I do, I think I'm human. You're human. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
we care about people, but I'm so tired of hearing like, oh, you don't care about chronic pain patients. Of course I do. That's why I fucking believe in kratom. That's why I've been doing this for so long.
I knew about 7OH for months and months and months before I started talking about it. I was like, because I didn't want to use my platforms to look like I was like reverse promoting it, you know? And yeah, it kind of did, because some of my followers were the curiosity killed the cat.
Oh, I
And
get that too. Yeah.
yep. And they went and started taking 7OH. And then they hop into my messages later and be like, oh my God, Misty, I should have listened to you, sooner. It's like,
Hmm.
I don't want to say I told you so, but you know, fuck around and find out. That's what you did. I'm out
Yeah.
here warning you guys. Like I said, I initially started talking about it to show the science or lack thereof science, you know, and then it just snowballed from there. It's like, you know what? I finally just ripped off the fuck it. I was like, this is too much. And then, attending those champ shows and seeing all those booths and oh God, I had gotten thousands of dollars of free products in my hands, thousands
Hmm.
of dollars. And I'm thinking to myself, if I could get this easily here, imagine what people, just normal everyday people who, like walking into the smoke shop and going in there and getting their vape juice or something, and they're getting handed a free sample of 7OH. It all, majority of my commenters it started with the free sample. And I
Hmm.
say this all the time because I used to be a drug dealer and I used to, associate with drug dealers. The free sample is what gets you the first time.
Hmm. Yeah, 100%. But it's like a lot of people weren't even going in. They were just getting like vape juice. Like, why are you going to give anything to someone like that was just getting there for vape juice?
Yeah.
That's predatory behavior. I always feel like our job as like kratom vendors we're kind of like gatekeepers in that way. Like, you want to make like, you don't want to like just advertise kratom to everyone. That's not our job whatsoever. It's people have a certain issue or something they want better in their life, and which led them to kratom, which then led them to you, type of thing. You shouldn't be standing out on the corner even with just natural powder. Oh, here, take this. Hi, Jim, I just met you, take kratom. Like, that's crazy. Like, oh, I see you smoking a cigarette, here's kratom. Like, that's and with 7OH, it's like that's the difference between like a kratom vendor and a 7OH vendor. I feel like 708 a lot of 7OH vendors are predatory.
I know Regulate Kratom now. That's, Jordan saw it in person. It's like, how dare you do that? She's done that at a couple hearings. And it would always make me turn my head sideways like, what? And then you have the nerve to have on your t-shirt saying protect kratom and 7OH? Like, no, you're still using that. You're still using kratom as a front.
Yeah, I mean, I've never personally spoken with her. I mean, obviously, I don't agree with anything that she stands for or what she says. I've never personally spoken with her like I'm sure like Mac has and stuff like that. But yeah, I was in the hearing with her, and I actually testified after her, because the thing that really frustrates me too is when people say that 7OH is natural to the leaf itself. Like it's naturally occurring in kratom. Well, no, it's not naturally occurring in kratom. It happens because of oxidation in kratom powder. Like those are two different things. Like metragenine is naturally occurring. Corinne anthidine, those sort of alkaloids, those are naturally occurring to the plant itself. But yeah, so that's I semi corrected her after, but I mean I wasn't trying to be rude, but that was
I can't
interesting.
remember when we interviewed Dr. McCurdy a while back. He had made, I'm going to paraphrase what he said, but he said something about it's like it occurred like if you were to cut off your arm, that's when the oxidation happens, and that's when the 7OH would happen. But it's very minute amount. I cannot recall exactly what he said, but it had something to do with that.
Yeah. I mean, again, that's what I'm saying. Like the natural growth cycle of kratom, meaning when it's still on the tree, while it's still living per se, there's no 7OH. It's when you cut the arm, basically taking it off, then trace amounts. I mean, that's why it's called 7-hydroxy metragenine, because it used to be metragenine. Like metragenine and 7OH aren't like coexisting at the same time within the natural plant.
Yeah.
It forms post harvest, and yeah, so I don't know. And then it was like, oh well, that's a natural process. It's like, well, it's not natural to the plant.
They twist everything.
Yeah, it's kind of annoying too. And again, even because I mean, when I interviewed McCurdy, he's like the amount of 7OH in the powder. He's like it's so minuscule, it has no pharmacological value like whatsoever. It's just there. It's just there. You know.
Yep.
Yeah. And I mean it's crazy though, just that one change to metragenine in the seventh position like creates such a higher abuse potential. Such a little shift can cause such a drastic change, respiratory depression, or much higher like a abuse potential. Obviously, just a little shift in it can be massive.
I'm gonna have to re-listen to this, because what did Max say about the new thing that they just found out about metragenine on the opioid receptor or something like that? And then he talked about it flip-flopping.
Oh, I remember, but I didn't understand. I that was above my pay grade. I didn't understand.
I'm gonna have to re-listen to that. Tracy says, let's see. I hope people email you, Tracy. I didn't. If y'all need to go look for Tracy's email. She's on Winifred Jenkins' Facebook right now, because you need to email her.
Yeah, if you wanna send me an email, that's totally fine, Tracy. Or I think you have my number, right? I think. See, I give everyone my number. That's probably how the 708 people got it.
Well, she was in DC with us.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I would be more than happy to help. You can reach out at New Hope Botanicals at Gmail.
Hey Taylor, what's up?
Or on TikTok or something like that. Yeah, I'm totally fine with the 7OH people like threats about me. It really, really irritates me when they say stuff about my family.
Yeah. And you know what? Oh, this is what I wanted to remind everybody. So when I did start talking about 7OH, I was attacked big time from the 7OH community. My socials were put over there on that 7OH Reddit rat thread, and they were attacking me left and right. They were reporting my shit. They were trying to get me shut down. They were trying to cancel me. And
Mm-hmm.
this was all happening when I was on my way to the champ show. And it happened right before my plane was about to take off, and I couldn't do shit when I was on the
Mm-hmm.
plane because you got no Wi-Fi. And
Mm-hmm.
so as soon as the plane lands, I'm checking my notifications and all that shit, and bam, 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 bam. They reported so many posts of mine, they reported so many videos of mine, and it's like they were trying to get me canceled. And they even
Mm-hmm.
and then so I had to wind up putting my accounts on private, and but they were joking about swatting me, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And here I am, I'm out there in Vegas, and my kids are here at home, and I'm sitting there kind of living in fear, like what? I'm like, what if the damn SWAT team shows up in my house?
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing I can do. My kids are at home.
Yeah, I've had people like pretending to be like cartel and stuff too, which is pretty crazy.
God.
Yeah. Again, not. I've never had anything in person, nothing like that whatsoever. No one's ever showed up at my house or anything. But I get a lot of messages, and it's just all ill threats. I don't really think that the nephew of El Chapo is really after me. Like I'm not dumb, but it's still annoying though. It infuriates me when they talk about my wife and kids though.
Yeah, there hasn't been like in-person things either. You better not fucking go that route. You better not. And KDA, y'all need to sit the fuck down. Keep doing what you're doing, advocating. Go right ahead, KDA, do that shit. But don't try to silence us.
Yeah. Again,
Yeah,
I might not agree with what they say in their organization, but they have every right to say it. You know,
Because after all, this is America.
yeah, they have every right to do it. They have every right to show evidence, just like we have right to show evidence and tell our story. You know, I'm just, yeah, it's the world of kratom is complicated.
It is.
It is very complicated.
Can you imagine if we wrote a soap opera or a documentary just about the drama and shit inside the creative community?
Oh my gosh, yeah, the unbelievable.
As the creative world turns.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, Days of Our Strains or something like that. Right.
Yes. That's hilarious.
But
All right.
yeah, well, thank you for all your work and everything for sure.
Thank you too. Thank you to you. Thank you to you as well. And as all the folks in the comments too. I see you guys. Don't think that I ain't paying attention. I might not comment or, like or heart anything or anything. I pay attention.
Yeah, I can't even see. I see like one comment every like 10 minutes, so I can't see the vast majority of stuff. Are you on TikTok right now? Where are you?
No, I can't stream to TikTok. When Jen and I set this up, we initially could stream to TikTok.
Okay,
But for some odd reason, we can't never get approved again.
I
So
see.
no, we're just streaming on 3 YouTubes, my ex account, and Jen's Facebook account because I'm still booted off Facebook.
Gotcha.
Did you
Okay.
try when you
To
got
what?
in? When you came in on the link,
Uh-huh.
were you able to try to add your TikTok channel to see if it came on?
Never even thought of doing that. That wasn't even a thought, to be honest.
Because you could stream to your YouTubes. We can add your stuff on here too. We could go to you. Are you on Facebook? I know you got booted
Um,
too, but
I got booted, and I have one like it's called like the Botanical Ninja, but like I never go on it really.
don't. It's not worth it. It's not worth
Yeah.
it.
So,
But yeah,
but
so next time you're on here, we could stream to like your YouTubes and all that
well,
stuff.
I think I set something up for TikTok
You did
through
that
this.
a while back. You did, but I don't. Were you ever approved to do it? And the only way you'll know is if say like we get off here and you click the link to come back on, even though we won't be live anymore.
Mhm.
Click the add channels part that's going to be on, like, I think it's the top part, the top right part of your page, your thing, after you
Gotcha.
click the link, just to see if it will go to TikTok.
Gotcha. Yeah, I know nothing about streaming whatsoever, so it's good to know,
It's
right?
Yeah, because of Kratom, I can learn it.
There you go. I
All
think
right.
that's awesome.
Well, I know that we're going to be busy tomorrow, so no recap with Mac tomorrow. I didn't want to do it on the days that everybody's going to be with their families, as well as we're going to be with our families. Like I said, I'm gonna be grilling tomorrow.
That
You know?
damn crate.
Yeah, I'm gonna use that same sound that I used last 4th of July, so I'm gonna use that.
You should. Yeah, like I said, my son turns 4, so it's gonna be a nice day, and make sure he has a good birthday and 4th of
Are
July.
you gonna be blowing up balloons and decorating tonight after he goes to bed?
Yes, but he's really into like the Avengers right now. So I got a lot of I have to go shopping right now for a bunch of superhero stuff. So
Well,
yeah,
you're his superhero. You
I
are for
hope
sure his
so.
superhero. He is your mini me. All of your kids look exactly like you, and your wife too, as well. I see both
Yeah,
y'all in them.
thank you. Yeah, they're so lucky. But yeah, so yeah, well, it's great talking to you, and I'll talk to you soon, okay?
Okay, bye everybody. Have a happy 4th of July.
Happy 4th.